Kartik Krishnaiyer here for the Florida Squeeze. This is a video I wasn't expecting to make. In the next week, we're going to move on from the election, hopefully, and from politics. Got a couple of history videos to come in conjunction with our Florida History podcast. I'm going to throw some of that stuff on YouTube, and then some of the nature videos that we've recorded in the past few months. We'll start re-releasing or releasing for the first time actually on this YouTube channel. But very unexpectedly, I think the turn of events on Thursday was pretty remarkable for those of us in Florida. Matt Gaetz withdraws from the Attorney General for consideration for being Trump's Attorney General. He then taps Pam Bondi. And I was beginning to get concerned about this the last few days. I had, in some of my private channels, had been saying, Gaetz is morally, and all the things. We did a video about him previously, I think we did a video about him, and certainly I've been on the periphery of his world, as I've talked about with a lot of people. So I know a lot about him. I think morally, he's morally just, sounds like a terrible thing to say. I think he's a scumbag. Morally, he's a repugnant person. But I think from a purely policy and ideological standpoint, he's probably the best you could get out of a Trump administration at justice. Because he's had a civil libertarian streak in the past. He has been an opponent of offshore drilling here in the state of Florida. I know that's something DOJ would probably end up having to deal with. More EPA, but DOJ might have to deal with that. He has been a defender, pretty staunch defender of LGBTQ rights, and he does have Democratic friendships. And, his wider circle even includes, some people kind of like me, right? Pam Bondi is someone I ran a campaign against. I was brought in at the end of the World Cup in 2014. I was working, obviously, in soccer journalism. Brought in at the end of that World Cup to be the political director of George Sheldon's campaign for Attorney General. I was then promoted to deputy campaign manager. We won the primary. This is in the Democratic side. I then eventually became the campaign manager, effectively the campaign manager the last 6 weeks or so of the campaign, statewide campaign. We were the nominee against Pam Bondi. She was the incumbent. And she is really bad on any number of things. She frivolously used Florida taxpayer money to file one lawsuit after another for political reasons, right? Including challenging the ACA, right? She frivolously, went after this idea of state-funded, of the expanded ACA for the states and Medicaid. She was demagogic to the point of just being completely insensitive after the Pulse shooting. That was after we ran the campaign against her. But one of the things we ran on was we were going to turn the Attorney General's office back from being a partisan office, which Pam Bondi had turned it into, because the previous two Republican Attorney Generals before her had not. They had continued to look at the state's interest and the interest of consumers. Charlie Crist and Bill McCollum. Bill McCollum was obviously Charlie Crist eventually became a Democrat, but Bill McCollum was a very partisan Republican. You can look up his record in Congress, which is significantly more conservative than Matt Gaetz's record in Congress. But he didn't turn the Attorney General's office into a partisan thing. Bondi was all about partisanship. She was all about pay to play. She was all about protecting big corporations. She was all about not looking out for consumers. And she was, quite frankly, very hostile to voting rights, very hostile to prosecuting anyone or anything in the public sector in a state run by Republicans. Prosecutions were effectively political tools when she was Attorney General. And again, I know all the moral issues with Matt Gaetz. And trust me, my stomach turns thinking a lot about Matt Gaetz. But it's not the same thing, right? Having a moral degenerate is not the same thing as having a partisan hack who has no respect for the bounds of her office, who has no respect for the interpretation of the law by people who may not agree with her, who is very much out of the mold of what the Federalist Society or what we have here in Florida, the James Madison Institute, would want. So I'm going to tell you she is extremely dangerous. And I think that she's someone that also has always had a cozy relationship with power and money. So she has been able to take advantage of Trump being president, or Trump, who she had a pre-existing relationship with prior to 2015 when he announced he was running. She has been able to use that to parlay that to get contracts, to lobby for people, to get involved with entities like Amazon and Jeff Bezos, and make a lot of money because of her proximity to power. That's not the kind of person you want as Attorney General of the United States. So yeah, be careful what you wish for. I mean, I was also singing the tune a week ago. My goodness, Matt Gaetz, it's terrible. He did this with a 17-year-old. I know everything he did in Tallahassee, running around. He's a philanderer. But, when you pull the veil back and you start thinking about actual policies, these are policy offices. These are executive offices. It gets worse. It gets much worse when we went from Harriet Miers to Samuel Alito because of the reaction to Harriet Miers being a political hack, right? George W. Bush, we got Alito on the court instead. That didn't work out so well. So, yeah, this is a similar thing. This is Miers to Alito. Not an original thought. Someone else had that thought, a reader and viewers of ours. But once he said it, it snapped. It was like, yes, that's what this is. Okay, I was disgusted also during the Bush administration. He's picking Harriet Miers. My God, how is she qualified to be on the Supreme Court other than personal loyalty to him? Same thing. How is Matt Gaetz qualified to be Attorney General other than personal loyalty? But then you knock off Gaetz like you knock off Miers and you get someone much worse. So, yeah, that's where we are.